Hi, Mike Ricker with Crash of Rhinos Painting, and today we're at a job in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we're talking about color and color theory a little bit, and color consultant, and how do you pick colors for a particular project. So I want to introduce my wife, Kim, and she is one of the owners here, and her primary role is to work with customers on contracts. She starts that immediately once you've decided to go with us. Part of what her job is to help to start guide you into the color selection process. So there's a lot of things with color. You can find many things on the web about the psychology of color and these kind of things. We're not going to get in that so much today. One of the reasons we're not is at Crash of Rhinos Painting, we focus on residential exterior painting only. So some of the things with color psychology, they deal with, how certain colors, impact you and the way they make you feel, and a red makes you feel this way and a blue this way. You don't see that so much on the residential exteriors here in the Phoenix market. We joke sometimes that everything is just a certain shade of dirt out here. And so it's a lot of times some of those lighter colors and the earth tones you're going to see a lot more of in here. So one of the things that Kim does is she starts that just asking some questions. So Kim, when you get an initial and you're having this initial conversation with a customer, I'm certain that you get anywhere from, I know the color, it's not a problem, to people that are just honestly a little freaked out about it and a little nervous about it. So if you have somebody that's a little nervous about that, the prospect of picking new colors, how do you start that? I've heard you on the phone talking with them. What's the first thing that you typically do?
I ask them what colors they don't like. And what I mean by that is, what are the undertones in the primary colors that you don't like? Do you like brown grays or do you not like brown grays? When you are looking at grays, do you like the purple and blue undertone or do you not like the purple and blue undertone of the gray? So it's more about the undertones in the colors that they're considering.
Okay, so if I say to you, I hate grays, I hate anything associated with it, you're just swiping that off the table there. Along with the ones that are semi-obvious. Most people aren't going to paint the exterior of their house fire engine red or a really deep blue or a hot pink. So it's the colors that would be considered more normative. Which ones don't you like? And that way you can just start whittling down the spectrum of colors that they're going to look at. Okay. And then, so let's say we've now whittled it down to, they like the tans, or, the almonds, or I want something, a little bit, I want something maybe a little bit darker. What do you do when they start talking about more specifics, especially if they go, when they start getting into different LRVs, which we can talk about, and how that impacts the project as well?
So I take a look at their house. Our estimator on every bid reads the house with a tool to determine the LRV of the current primary color. So I look at that LRV, which stands for light reflective value. Just a bit of information about light reflective value. It's a scale from 0 to 100, essentially, with black, especially in the Dunn-Edwards fan deck, being an LRV of 4, and Dunn-Edwards warm white being 93. We just use the scale 0 to 100. If I see a number on a bid that's at 24, or let's say a little bit higher, let's say they're at 50 and they want to go down to 20, I try to dissuade them for the mere fact that they will have significant fade in a few years, versus with the LRV that they currently have are going slightly higher.
Okay, so that's the darkness of the house is going to really determine fade. So anything, like you said, in a range of a 20 can be potentially problematic. One of the ways to combat that is high quality paints. We actually use a product called Evershield from Dunn-Edwards exclusively. So the higher quality paints in a manufacturing line will help to protect that because of the pigments and the binders, the resins that are in there, that will protect that pigment better. But nothing is going to withstand some of those UV rays. So if I have a house, let's say that's an LRV of let's just say 85. So it's a very, very light color. What should I expect of how that house might look, and is it going to look the same in 10 years or so?
You probably won't be able to recognize fade at that point with that high of an LRV, but what you will do, and what I hear often from homeowners who do have light houses and want to go darker, is you can see the dirt. After several years and several dust storms in the Phoenix area, dirt will eventually attach itself to the walls, and even ground. Rain water will splash up onto the walls, and people with light homes, after a while, are like, I'm done with it. It shows all of the dirt.
Okay, so it's a bit of a trade-off. One of the things we say here is that there really are no solutions to things. There's only trade-offs. And that's one of the things with this. There's going to be a trade-off with that. Let's talk about that a little bit with a trade-off, one of these items. So let's say you have a house and the homeowner is just dead set against light colors. I hate light colors. They look terrible. I think they make the house look awful. I like a dark color, right? And they're just set on that. They're going to have a house that's a 25 LRV. What do you tell them in that case?
You'll have more maintenance issues with your home. If you're okay with that, then I would suggest going with what you prefer.
Okay, because there's just nothing worse than actually driving up to your house every day and hating the color. So it's just, that's not a good thing either. So they just have to know that, again, there's not necessarily a solution to fix it. It's a bit of a trade-off. You're going to get the color that you like. It's going to look great. You're in love with it. You think it's a great thing for your house. But you just have to expect that maybe in 5 to 7 years versus 10 to 12 years that they may have to repaint if, and this is a big part of it here, if they want to have that darker color, and it's just a color issue. So one of the great things with Evershield paint is that in 10 or 12 years, that paint is actually going to still be doing its primary job, which is protecting the substrate. So the paint hasn't failed. It's just that some of those pigments with the darker colors are going to start breaking down a bit more, and you're going to have that. So if you want the look of it, you're going to have that maintenance a little bit more. Right. So one of the other challenges as well with darker colors is, let's say I've damaged something and we're on a house. We haven't painted this house yet, actually, but let's say I've damaged this, and this is in the sun, and it's a little darker color right there, and I need to touch it up. So that can be sometimes a challenge as well with that.
After every project is completed, we leave touch-up paint, and I sometimes have the conversation with people. If there's a question about touch-up, I will tell them, do not use touch-up paint after about 6 months to a year, because you're going to notice a difference. As time goes on, Evershield, which has a little bit of a sheen to it, will eventually have that sheen burned off from just the environment and the climate and the weather that we have here. If you were to go put a fresh swatch of Evershield on a year-old wall, you're going to notice it.
Okay, so that's one of the challenges as well with the darker colors. It's a little bit more difficult to do touch-ups. So let's go into a little bit about the HOA. So, in the Phoenix area, I think there's somewhere, between 50 and 70% of the homes. Out in the more suburban areas, it's the preponderance. Probably 80 to 90% of the homes are in what's called a homeowners association out here. So talk a little bit about that, about what do I do? Do I have to talk to them? Is it good to talk to them?
So over the last 10 years, I've kept records of all of the HOAs that I've dealt with customers, and I have a record of over 200 HOAs. And most of the HOAs are pretty responsive and easy to get approval for colors. There are a few that are not responsive, but very quick to issue compliance issues for you. I would say overall, majority of the HOAs are easy to work with a very simple architectural design review form to fill out, submit, and get approval. A lot of the HOAs are now moving towards doing all of this paperwork now online through your resident portal. So they're making it as easy as possible for homeowners to apply for exterior changes to their home.
Great, and I know quite a few of them use I don't want to say pre-approved, but but pre-made up palettes and different schemes
Mm-hmm.
that they can choose. I think Dunn-Edwards has one where we can go to with Color Arc, and you can actually see. So each HOA will have, if they do it online, you can actually access those colors through the website as well, and see at least the basic colors in there, and then submit as well.
You can see those on Dunn-Edwards, but most of the HOA websites will have the color palettes there as well. And my advice is to go there first before the Dunn-Edwards site, because sometimes there's a lapse of time with changes of palettes, and you might be looking at an older palette on Dunn-Edwards when they just recently updated, and they maybe even moved to a different paint manufacturer for their color palette. So go to your website for your homeowners association first. But yes, many times you can look at your color schemes on the Dunn-Edwards site.
That's great. So you bring up a point of different manufacturers. So let's say, so again, we use Dunn-Edwards exclusively. We have some homeowners that say, well, but my HOA has, let's say, Sherwin-Williams colors or something like that. Am I able to paint if it's a Sherwin-Williams color, but we use Dunn-Edwards paint?
Yes, I tell people we're able to, as long as the Sherwin-Williams colors are in their latest fan deck, or they have the formula for the older colors in their formulary, we are able to paint the Sherwin-Williams colors. You'll have the Sherwin-Williams name and number on the Dunn-Edwards paint can.
Okay, so it's Dunn-Edwards paint, and they've just tinted it to that specific formulation to get that particular color. Great. And then, so now they're in that process. You've narrowed them down to, let's say, how many colors? If you happen to be chatting with them and say, go pick how many colors, what do you want them to pick? 10 colors? 5 colors? What would you normally recommend initially?
So when we're talking about narrowing down to the finalization of their scheme, I try to have them look at 2 or 3 main colors and 2 or 3 trim colors. However many colors are on their home, at least 2 or 3 of each of those for comparison purposes, because you're able to better see the undertones when you have paint swatches to compare one to another, and that way you can eliminate, oh, I don't like this one because there's a green undertone here, so we're going to eliminate that color, or oh, I like this color. It just helps to have a comparison when you're deciding on that final scheme.
Excellent. So I know I can go to Dunn-Edwards and I can see the colors online there. Is that good enough? Should I just look online and on my screen and say I'm going to pick a color based on that?
I tell people it's great to begin the process looking at colors online, but every screen you look at that color swatch on, whether it's your phone, your desktop, your iPad, every device you look at that color swatch is going to be different. So that is not the best way to pick colors. I have had people tell me, I want this color. I looked at it online and I said, I don't think so. You probably want to get a paint swatch to see what that really looks like, because it's not accurate.
Okay.
So that's a good starting point, but you want to go to the store and get paint swatches, and maybe even once you narrow down your options, get paint samples and paint on poster board.
Okay, so that's right. So go get a couple samples, go to the store. I know even through Dunn-Edwards, I think homeowners can get paint swatches actually sent to them as well.
Yes, you can order those online.
And they just deliver to you in the mail. So that's great. So if you don't want to go to the store, because it can be a little intimidating. You go to the store and you see that big kiosk there with, I think in the current deck, there's maybe 2,000 colors or so. There's a lot of colors up there to do, and it'll get a little intimidating. That's
but if
great.
you have an HOA, you kind of limit it. Many times with an HOA, you know what you need, and so going into the store wouldn't be as intimidating as if you can pick from the whole gamut.
Okay, and then you mentioned also you got the sample, the swatch. This looks good. I think I like this. It sounds like you also recommend to go ahead and get a sample of that. So I'm going to get, what, a little 8-ounce sample or a quart or whatever they may have, correct?
So that's only, a lot of people are fine with the chips.
Yep.
So it's really rare that people want the samples. But when they do want the samples, if it's a Dunn-Edwards color, they can get an 8-ounce sample from Dunn-Edwards. If they're looking at Sherwin-Williams colors, Dunn-Edwards can't do anything smaller than a quart.
Okay, so they're going to take that quart and they're going to come up and they're just going to brush it on their house. Is that what they should do?
I tried to discourage them from painting on their home, because many times homeowners, and I've done this even early on in my consulting days, I've put too thick of a layer of paint on the surface, and then when we go over when we cover it with the color that they finally selected, you can see that something happened to that surface right there.
Yep.
It's not bleeding through, but the texture of the stucco has now changed because the sample was put on too thick and there were hard edges. If they're going to paint on their home, which is still discouraged, I tell them to put a thin layer and feather out the edges. But what I try to gravitate them toward is go buy a big poster board and make big swatches and tape it on your wall. Dunn-Edwards also has these sticky sheets that you can paint and they stick on the wall as well. I like the poster board because it's bigger.
Okay. And then so you can move that around to where it's in the shade or in the sun as well.
And you're not painting on all, you're not painting everywhere.
And this is an example. This is more of a fine sand finish right down here. And this is kind of an example. If I put it on too thick and then we go to repaint it, we're covering up the color, but what we're not doing is changing the texture. So because you put it on too thick, you've actually now changed the texture of the stucco, and any new coat is just going to further changing that texture. So if you look at it from a distance and you see that difference there, what you're going to see something just doesn't look quite right. It's not the color, it's the texture that you're noticing, because your eye is going to gravitate to where that change is. And then we're going to get a little bit into this whole thing about color a little bit. Some of you may remember from, I think it was maybe 2015, it was years ago, the whole thing is the dress blue or gold. There's different even color illusions that are out there. We have some that we can send to people with, looks like a chessboard. We have one that's called color balls, where you can actually see the difference in colors, and the eye and your brain and the way colors work can make a big, big difference in there. So, and is that some of the reason you would say move it from the shade to, you know, a color, you know, where there's a lot of light on the side of the house so you can see some of the different colorings in there?
Yeah, I usually tell people to take some time with the swatches over the course of a few days, and hopefully, unfortunately in Phoenix, we don't get a lot of overcast or cloudy days, but you have to like the color in the sun, in the shade, when it's cloudy, when it's sunny, and it'll look different wherever you're putting it, and whether it's in direct sunlight or not. And you want to like your color at all times. Yeah,
exactly. And then we'll just touch on one final thing, you know, a little bit of color psychology. We may do a video in the future about some of that, where, you know, how do blues affect you differently than greens? It's not really the thing we do a lot of, because again, we're dealing with residential exterior painting. You don't see a lot of those colors on there. But as we wrap up, I want to talk about, so you've now talked with them. It's now a month later or some period later. We used to do, Kim used to do quite a bit of what we would call color consultation, where we would actually do renderings of homes and these kind of things. And that's not something, for just different reasons, that we have her doing anymore in there. So we actually partner with Dunn-Edwards on this process. And by chance, we actually have our Dunn-Edwards paint rep here today. And we didn't know it was going to be happening, but the local Phoenix paint color advisor is actually here today. I want to invite, come on in, Helen, here. So this is actually just by chance, folks. It just kind of, she just kind of came in and say hello to everybody.
Hello.
So, Helen with Dunn-Edwards. What we have been doing, we have a great relationship with Dunn-Edwards, and referring is what can you do for a customer that we used to do, but you guys do an awesome job of. Tell them a little bit about what you can provide to a customer.
So I'm very well versed, not that Kim isn't, but I am very well versed in the DE colors. I've been with the company for quite a few years, so I know the undertones, I know how they interact. I see a lot of the HOA schemes throughout the valley, so I know what color schemes people like, what combinations they like. It all kind of comes together easily for me. I take the worry out of colors.
Great. So, and that's, I think, you know, some of the experience we have is that's one of the most difficult parts of this process is people just get a little freaked out at times with that. So you're able, I think it sounds like, to go through that process and just guide them to help them be have less anxiety about the process.
Absolutely. I definitely great word choice is guide. I can't pick the colors for them, but like Kim says, I get them down to 2 or 3 selections, have them sample, do the renderings, do as much as I can to confirm that everything comes together for their home. And then a lot of times there's just such a relief from the customers that they've taken out that worry.
Excellent. And now I know Dunn-Edwards, they do it kind of 2 ways. You can do an in-store consultation where you make an appointment and you deal with the professional color advisor in the store. And I think currently, as of this is late June of 2023, there's no charge for that.
Correct.
Currently, I don't think there's any plans for charges that we're aware of for that, but that's currently a free service that you offer, which is just fabulous. There is a charge. We're not going to go, to the exact charge with this, but if you do something in home, there is a charge for that, correct?
So yes, right now I am the Valley's in-home color advisor. Hopefully we'll have another one maybe next year. But there is a fee for the service, and what that includes is a consult in the store or via Zoom. It comes with an hour of me spending time at the home with the customer, going over the colors, looking at swatches, comparing them. And then they do get free samples with me. They get free 5x8s. And then for exteriors, we do the color placement guides or renderings.
Excellent. And I know that that's a big help. And we've got a lot of feedback from customers that after they've gone to you, they're like, oh gosh, it was so nice having her here, because it brought, again, a lot of that worry. It just removed that. So really, thanks for coming out. It was a surprise for us today. This is really awesome. I don't think we have anything else in here. So if you do have any questions, feel free. There's going to be all this information we talked about. We'll put some of the links to the Dunn-Edwards both in-home and in-store color consultation in the description below. If you have any other questions, feel free to give us a call at our office or contact us. And on behalf of Crash of Rhinos Painting and from Dunn-Edwards, we just want to say thank you and have a great day.